Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out to Abraham Muhammad, Adrian Quintana, Alistair Main, Billy Highvolt, Burn Fat Till My Stomach Is As Flat As the Earth, Chow Young Cat, Dank, Dave Rakia Gafford, David Wayne Foster, Edwin Johnson, Owen Jennisons, Felix Hung, Fireball X God Rockin, Henrik86, Jeranism, Kirsten Smith, Liam Nedrick, Life Is Short, Matt, Nagara, Naibai, Qatar Craig, Reinhardt, Renee, Sally Ballis, Silver Umbrella, Skeptic936, Texas Mike, The Flat Earth Sun, Moon and Zodiac Clock App, theflatearthchannel.com, Tina Baker and Tom Hawkins. So a massive shout out of appreciation to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now we are joined by a few people in both Discord and G+. I haven't actually taken anybody off mute in the Discord server, but hello all the same. Good to have you all.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Morning. There you go. Everyone's off mute in Discord now. If you do want to join in. If not, you won't get much out of me because I'm going to set up for the first live show.
So nobody goes along with Nathan like, welcome to the Flat Earth Debates. Why?
At times I do.
Yeah.
When you hear it enough times.
Yeah. You just cannot resist it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'll try and welcome everyone and say thank you at the end. Not
Thank
always,
you.
but I try to.
Thank you.
Thank you. He told us to say it at the end, right?
Yeah, I'm saying at the end, in the outro, I'll say a massive, huge, enormous thank you to all of you who joined us on the G+ and Discord panels for making the show possible. Because obviously without you, there wouldn't be a show. So I am genuinely grateful, which is why I say it at the end of every show.
No, but we go along. We say the words while you say it because we know it.
We anticipate you saying it, so we say it too.
Oh, I see.
So I corresponded with Dr. Becky from that one video, an astrophysicist at Oxford, I guess, and asked her to provide a single viable scientific hypothesis in the entire history of either astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics, and I haven't heard back from her yet.
There aren't any.
You won't.
Well, she was sitting down at her computer doing science, is what she said. So I just watched the video a couple of times, and I said, well, what kind of science do you do if you sit down at your desk and view pictures of the universe from whatever source you got them from? And she's studying black holes. So I sent a message concerning how's that science when you can't manipulate anything. So we'll see if she gets back or not.
I doubt it.
Highly doubt that she's coming back to you.
We never know.
For her, it would be better to be sucked by a black hole.
Well, I mean, they're young and they're excited and they're astrophysicists and they got a degree. Okay, but what are you doing? You're looking at pictures. It's saying from a picture that this is happening and that's happening and this isn't happening, all from a picture?
Yeah, she needs some self-awareness.
Well, I'm just being critical in a good way of how do you get all that from a picture?
Yeah. Microwave background radiation.
Your opening question was perfect. What's the scientific or valid hypothesis or viable hypotheses even from any of the fields of cosmology, astronomy or astrophysics? What have you actually got? What's your science? If you sat at the computer doing science, well, let's see the hypothesis then. Oh, what's that? Not actually doing science, but saying science. That automatically deems you a pseudoscientist. That's what you are. If you're saying, yeah, this is science while I'm sat here typing or looking at pictures on my computer, no, you're not establishing cause and effect through systematic experimentation based on a hypothesis now, are you, love? So you're a pseudoscientist.
And you see Zanuck posting in Discord, science is about observation and not proving things. How backwards can that be? I mean, can it get any more backwards than that definition from Zanuck?
No. That's just, the level is ridiculous.
I mean, just the connotation. This is the science department of the university. I mean, just that title tells you something that is empirical. But then when it comes to actually seeing the empiricism, they don't have it.
That's what happens when you don't pay attention. Earth becomes a globe, and science becomes pseudoscience.
Yeah. Well, listen, you got 8 housekeeping questions every day. Just debunk them, and we'll all go back to our nice globe.
Yeah. I'll buy globes and put them in every room. And I'll spin them. On that axis. See that Coriolis effect. And to see how that curve is sucking the atmosphere along with it.
Well, let's see, what's new on the debate front? Anything new?
I get another Danny Faulkner update today. So, following on from Friday, Anthony was challenging him to provide some sort of validity to his assertions in regards to A, being able to challenge all flat earth assertions, and B, having gas pressure without a container. And one of his little minions expressed to Anthony that he didn't need to vary and manipulate an independent variable in order for it to be science. Anthony then provided 10 citations to contradict that complete nonsense assertion that you don't need to vary a variable for it to be an independent variable and be science. You do. The guy was wrong. Anthony pointed this out, and Dr. Daniel Faulkner essentially was off the hook for a few moments, but Anthony persisted and then got banned from the thread.
Yep.
It seems, from what I could glean, if you're in that thread and you're asserting that gravity is not actually a force, but you can think of it as a force, and prominent PhDs will say it's not a force, but they're not contradicting themselves when they say it is a force, which supports his notion, which Anthony had pointed out that he completely ignored from his explanation in his book, that's tolerable. But Anthony asking for scientific validity, that'll get you banned.
It's like they preemptively sink the ship so they don't go down with it. That's why they deleted the threat. Like rats saving themselves.
Maybe, but it looks even worse. So essentially that is the situation. He's being tolerated when he says it's not a force. PhDs say it's not a force, but it is actually a force. They're not contradicting themselves because here's other positions where they've taken it and said it's a force. And that's not a contradiction. That's what he said. And then Anthony said, yeah, that's what I was pointing out in the first instance, that it's not a force. Seems you're agreeing with me that the Einsteinian rhetoric is the current rhetoric, despite you completely ignoring it and quoting 100-year out-of-date science, in quotes, in your book. That was Anthony's point. So upon concession, and then asking for actual scientific validity when it comes to Einstein, that's the point that he's got ejected from the group. He's not attacking anybody personally, even though he's being called incompetent by Dr. Daniel Faulkner, saying he doesn't understand. What a shock. Usual rebuttal. In other words, no rebuttal, just being told that you don't understand when Daniel Faulkner's having to correct his position in regards to the Einsteinian nonsense that's currently being punted, that it wasn't addressed. It might have been addressed later in his book, but certainly wasn't addressed when it came to gas pressure without a container. He asserted a force, and then when it being pointed out that it's not a force, he agrees and says that other PhDs make it plain it's not a force, it's a geodesic, in a not actual medium, conceptual space-time. Yeah, Anthony was asking for validity to that. Now, that's a perfectly reasonable discourse, other than the assertions that Anthony doesn't understand because he's not a PhD. Yeah. Other than that, it was a reasonable discourse. A little bit stroppy on their part, a little bit presumptuous and arrogant on their part, Globers, that is, PhD Dr. Daniel Faulkner specifically. But ultimately, at the point that you're asking for validity through science, that's when you get banned. And yet, not actual forces that you can think of as forces that have been dreamt up in the mind of Einstein being asserted by somebody who's supposed to be an authority in this religion, that's tolerable. Yeah, okay, that's the world we live in. Double-speak nonsense is acceptable. Asking for scientific validity gets you banned.
Interesting. Well, the Newtonian is mass attracts mass nonsense, and the center of the Earth is what they're always saying is the strongest pull. And then they dump it for over 100 years, but they don't really, it's not hitting the headlines, so not everybody knows they dumped it until we bring it up and cite it. Then all the people who are in that field know that it's been dumped, but they still use it. And then when we remind them that, no, you believe it's the bending of a conceptual medium now. Can you prove that? Well, they couldn't prove the first one. How in the world are they going to prove the second one?
Yeah, they've taken it out of the physical, put it into the conceptual, and they expect people like Dr. Daniel Faulkner, they being the purveyors of this pseudoscience nonsense assertion that we have a not actual force that you can think of as a force and isn't a contradiction when someone says it's not a force and then later says it is a force. That's acceptable nonsense rhetoric from the current heliocentric side and completely tolerated. But when you say, can you have some scientific validity, you'd need to actually vary and manipulate an independent variable. Oh, Sleeping Warrior, we're talking about just the man. Talking specifically about you getting banned from Dr. Daniel Faulkner's thread when asking for scientific validity in regards to his assertion that you can have a not actual force that you can think of as a force, and it isn't a contradiction when someone else says it's not a force, but then later goes on to say it is a force.
Yeah, it's complete double speak. I've been kicked out of it now. They won't let me back in. And I'm like, this is just fundamentally dishonest, motherfuckers.
It is fun.
You're right.
It's like when you debate Rumpus, right? Rumpus wins by not letting you respond, but that doesn't mean he wins. That just means that you're not allowed to talk back.
Yeah. They're just sore losers.
That's it. That is literally what it is. They are sore losers. They can't admit anything ever against their model because the minute they let any of it go, all of it collapses.
Well, fortunately, in that thread, you got to the point where you're asking him to provide scientific validity, having explained what science is and the requirement, despite the challenge, that it requires an independent variable to be manipulated. Well, in spite of that being put forth, that was when you got banned.
Yeah.
So what? They can hold each other's willies and say, yeah, bending of a concept will give rise to a not actual force that we can think of as a force. That's acceptable, but you asking for actual empirical validity isn't acceptable.
Yeah, so what he was doing was he'd make a statement, and if anybody like me challenged it, there would be 2 or 3 people that would stand in front of him to protect him like a human shield. He wouldn't then engage. He would leave them to it and let them fight his battles for him.
Yeah, but when the person fighting his battles for him, with him presumably not challenging anything incorrect by those trolls, it reflects extremely badly on him. So when one of his trolls is saying you don't need to manipulate a variable, that's too narrow. It's like, yes, science is narrow, and you do have to manipulate your independent variable to establish cause. That's what science is. However, Dr. Daniel Faulkner has stood by and let that be a rebuttal to you asking for scientific validity.
And then when somebody started spouting incorrect scientific method, and I asked him to step in and intervene and correct his friend that was incorrect, that was the same time when I got kicked.
Well, maybe you interfered with his own little internship program with the people who follow him, where he says, "Here, take care of this. This is one of those flat earthers." And then, of course, when they say something wrong, he can't go say you were wrong because it's part of his team.
It's definitely true that you can't challenge. It's definitely true that they hate scientific method being used against them.
So does everybody. As I said a couple of days ago, and now that the dust has settled and Bob Nodell and I seem to chat a little bit in chat forums, I'll happily discuss this a little bit more openly these days. But ultimately speaking, we will challenge our own. We often get into infighting. It amuses me greatly when people comment on the infighting and say, you see, they're fighting amongst themselves, they don't even agree. No, we don't agree. No, none of us have got all the answers. And yes, we all have differing opinions, and we will challenge each other on them, regardless of if it is detrimental to our reputation. What's true and right and good is all that matters. Not what toes the line, not what conforms with flat earth. Who gives a crap? But if you're asserting science and you've actually got pseudoscience to offer, you're going to be offended. You're going to take it badly, at least initially. Everyone I've done it with, flat earth or globe earth, has taken it badly when you point out that what they're asserting, under the banner of science, isn't science. They just don't like it. Now, Dr. Daniel Faulkner is obviously prepared to toe the line with his own group of people and not correct them when they're wrong. And I believe the reason is as follows. Because he has purveyed pseudoscience to his believers. And when he tells them that, no, you can accept the word science, meaning empiricism, when I spout bullshit about something I've seen in the sky, then you must accept that science is far more broad than it really is. When in reality, it's very narrow. Doesn't matter if you assert that because you've used the word science when talking nonsense or making up stories, suddenly, no, science isn't as narrow as to say that you need to vary and manipulate a cause you have assumed will generate effect you have observed in the natural world. Because that is what science is. And if you declare your science, as Dr. Daniel Faulkner has done, and then you actually haven't got that, you are by default a pseudoscientist. So is the good lady that you spoke to, 10th Man. You mentioned her name a moment ago.
Dr. Becky. Dr. Becky.
Dr. Becky, who has said that she sat at her computer doing science. So you have observed a natural phenomena and are now formulating a hypothesis with an independent variable, your presumed cause of this effect, which you are going to go forth and systematically experiment to validate that cause as the cause of the effect you observed? No, Dr. Becky, that's not what you're doing, but you're claiming science, aren't you? Well, you haven't got any. You don't have any empiricism. You've got what you've observed on a computer and declared is science. Automatic pseudoscience tag is attributed to you and your actions from this point forth. Same goes for Dr. Daniel Faulkner. Same goes for Neil deGrasse Tyson. Science is right whether you like it or not. Yeah, reassert the fact that science is empirical. It is. If you adhere to the scientific method. But when they make declarations like science is right whether you like it or not, and then go on to tell you what your world is based on lights in the sky and their own just so stories, they're just pseudoscientists. Frauds. People who use the word science to make you believe that their empirical nature is being adhered to when they make their just so stories up. And they're not. And we're the ones calling it out on both sides. It doesn't matter who you are or what you believe in as far as I'm concerned. If you're going to take that word science, meaning empiricism, and say that what you have is that, and you haven't, you're going to get called out for it. Dr. Daniel Faulkner isn't prepared to do that with his own side. We are.
Well said. I mean, I've been wrong many times before. I could be wrong again. There's no problem. Just do it through facts and demonstration. These people, when they're proven to be wrong, they don't want to admit to it.
And yeah, they aren't prepared.
Yeah. It's a shame, really, because it really shows when people won't concede that they might not have it right. That defiance that Rumpus shows all the time. He'll never, ever concede certain points. And it's just embarrassing because they are demonstrably wrong, but they just will not accept it. It's like, fucking hell, guys, come on.
Well, I caught some of your debate, and you were, Anthony, you're doing yesterday with Ranty. And then finally Rumpus got on, of course, at the end. And I missed a good part, so I may not be in context, but from what I did get, they can't demonstrate what they're saying, no matter what they say about the atmosphere next to
Well,
the vacuum of space. They can't demonstrate it with a gradient, without a gradient. Just demonstrate it. We'll give it to you. The weight, it's okay. It's weight.
the atmosphere is not cohesive. It doesn't have any bonding. It can't be considered a mass in its whole state because it's not got a whole state. It's not a solid. It's a gas. And it's like, well, where's the weight coming from? Because you need that mass to have weight, and they haven't got any. So the atmosphere hasn't got any weight, but they need that.
Well, that's right. But what I'm trying to say is this: whether you get into the minutia like you were with them, I'm just on the outside saying, okay, listen, this is so crazy of a discussion now because of the way Rumpus is. Why don't you just demonstrate it? Well, when I say demonstrated, Rumpus, that means you're going to prove that the atmosphere has weight and it could be next to the vacuum of space. But you can't even do that. But you're arguing for that.
But that's within their model, isn't it? That's where the divide is. In their model, they can argue for it. But in real world, it doesn't exist. They can't do it. And that's the point. Spurs rang this morning, obviously, because it was talking about gas pressure. He was instantly on the phone this morning. And I said, listen, Spurs, I said, at the end of the day, I said, it's different to arguing in their model compared to arguing in real world. Within their model, it makes logical sense at times when they make some of the points. But in real world, if it conflicts with real world, it doesn't matter how right it is in their model. It's not real world. And that's what they don't understand. They're in their model and they can't get out of it, or they won't get out of it.
Yeah, but they want us to accept that their model is true. So demonstrate your model in the real world. That's and that's what we're both saying. And they can't.
Correct.
Demonstrate reification fallacy in the real world. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's precisely correct. I'll reassert that. Demonstrate your reification fallacy. Well, that's a contradiction in terms. They can only reify the model. They can't demonstrate in reality. As I say, that's a contradiction in terms to begin with. But that is the nature of their proof. A reification of a model. That's all they have.
Well, if they were able to demonstrate anything in reality, we wouldn't be here now.
Exactly. If the Earth was a sphere, it would be bloody obvious that it was a sphere. There'd be no need for logical fallacy formulation, in the same way I don't need to formulate any logical fallacy to say the Earth is obviously and observably flat. That's it. That's the end of my statement. There's nothing needing justification in my statement, because there's nothing that presents itself to the contrary. But when you assert the Earth is a sphere, you need to formulate a string of logical fallacies, usually starting with an R value and a model. That's where it begins. Assume we're on this sphere. Now check out how this matches. That's how their argument works. It's the only argument they have.
Matchmaking.
Matchmaking?
Yeah, they make it to match.
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean. Like Guess Who or whatever. Look, this bit matches with how my model says it should work. Doesn't your model exclude all aspects of perspective? Shh, it matches the way we see it. No, it doesn't. Yeah, it does. Look, the maths match.
Yeah, it's pathetic. The bad thing is that we have to deal with the wokeheads that are just disgusting liars. They're awful human beings. They're disingenuous. They're horrendous. And this is what people have turned into, and that's why we end up in a situation like living on a space testicle, because of people acting shit and being liars.
Well, wasn't it Tesla who's given credit for saying they've substituted real science with mathematics?
Yeah, something to that effect. Can't remember the quote exactly, but yeah, Tesla did.
Yeah, so they could have their math, they could have their Narnia world, and it works there. And then when you say, okay, apply it to the real world, and it falls apart. Well, that's why this show is here. We're saying, show us in the real world everything you're saying. And they can't, as Quantum Eraser said, they only reify.
You guys know Flat Earth Data?
Yeah, flat Earth data.
Yes.
Yeah.
Made some progress with him yesterday. So I think it was it might have been in Ranty's live show or the Uncut and After show. I can't remember which. But either way, he was asking me a question about an equivalence he made when someone's throwing a medicine ball off a shopping trolley. And his point is that you're pushing against the ball, which is resisting, which the air is resisting, which gives you the push as you throw the ball, and you don't have that in space. And I was like, space is fake. You don't need to go through this process of debunking an aspect. In fact, it's quite negative, because at the end of the argument, if you make your point that a rocket wouldn't work in the reification of space, then all you've done is win that point and lost the war. Because your person watching or the person you're arguing with is still left with the impression that space is real, just that rockets couldn't work in them, if you win the point. Whereas if you start from, well, who cares? That region is completely fake. You can't have gas pressure without a container. There's no need to argue about the rockets not working in it, or the ISS fakery with their CGI green screens, or travelling to the moon, satellites, orbits, the composition of Jupiter, everything. It doesn't matter what, everything. Same with origin stories. Anthony's just clicked to this a week ago. So he's like, well, where does the water come from? They said it came in on little snowball rocks during the Great Bombardment. Where do we get all the water from? Yeah, not from where they say, because they say it comes from this fake region of Narnia, space, that doesn't exist. It's a violation of laws of nature. So with Flat Earth Data, it reached the point where it's like, yeah, I see your point now. I've got it. I don't need to argue about medicine balls and rockets in a vacuum, because there isn't a vacuum. So why argue about what would or wouldn't happen in a region of a vacuum when there isn't one? That's the overriding point when it comes to the argument about anything to do with fake space. It's like, what do you say? Where'd you say that satellite is? Where'd you say this idea of what Jupiter does is happening as a gas giant? Oh yeah, a violation of a law of nature. Sky vacuum. Yeah, that wouldn't work, mate. End of argument. Don't need to go through their numbers on spectroscopy.
Spectroscopy. You're exactly right, sir. Where do you get that medicine ball argument from a doofus video? I think it was in 2015. They're on like a scooter or something, and they push a medicine ball out. Right? Well, the wheels of the scooter's attached to what?
Ground.
The road, or whatever surface you're on, right? You're getting resistance from that, you dumb. Oh my God, that was so stupid when I first seen that. I was like, what? But you're right, Nathan. Just kill it.
Jungle Surfer did it on a not surfboard, on a skateboard, and just threw rocks. It's like, yeah, back in 2015, I'd have probably backed the argument and gone, yeah, you got to put point. You can't push up anything in a vacuum. There's nothing to resist. And then they get into the argument of how the gas is actually, the dispersion of the gas is what's causing the propulsion, and you get into this argument forever about whether or not a bloody rocket would work in a fake medium. It's like, sod that. I was so chuffed when that argument came along, Kiwi. I could kiss you, because it just cut the legs off all of that shite. I hated it from the beginning, arguing with people about whether or not something that's blatantly, obviously filmed on a set is filmed on a set or not. So I worked in performing arts. I was trained in performing arts. That's what I did for a number of years. And if you can't spot a set, then, there's no hope for you. You just want to suspend disbelief. But to me, you go, yeah, that's a backdrop. That's a set. It clearly didn't happen. Now, don't get me wrong. When I was a Globie, I didn't even consider it. It's amazing. You feel dumb after you realise, because you go, geez, it's just a set. How could I have been so blind? Well, when you get into arguments about that from that position and go, well, it's clearly a set, and people just don't accept it, you reach a dead end. Where does your argument end? Well, it doesn't. You go on and on and on, point out more and more fake CGI and going, look, it's a set, look, it's a set. And with people going, no, it isn't, they're in space. But then you get to how can you have gas pressure without a container? Oh, you can't? Oh, then space is fake then. So I don't give a crap what they say on the TV screen about what that light in the sky is. They're claiming it's in a vacuum, in an orbit. Well, none of that's real. Automatically bunk. You can't have the gas pressure we breathe without a container. And they claim we're an open system in a vacuum with gas not dispersing. No, that's not real. End of story. Doesn't matter what you say about rockets and how they would or wouldn't work in a fake medium. Doesn't matter about what you say about the composition of Jupiter. It doesn't matter what you say about the orbit of the ISS and what's happening on the high wires and the green screens. All becomes irrelevant. Space is fake. Can't have gas pressure without a container.
And the crazy thing in just the logic is that families who have videos and pictures from the old medium like VHS and stuff wanting to preserve those, so they quickly hurry to transfer them to a CD or digital so that they have their memories preserved and not lost. And here's NASA saying they went to the moon, the greatest feat man has ever done to this date concerning our universe, and all the telemetry, everything has been lost, erased, set aside, somebody's basement, Hillary's emails, who knows? I mean, I can't even imagine someone saying we need to preserve this. This was the greatest thing we've ever done before it rots away. It's such a lie. So bold-faced.
No, more realistically, quick, set fire to the editing suite so that there's absolutely no trace of the fakery and the fact that it was filmed on a set. And then, should we ever be asked for the telemetry data, say we've lost it. Then it's not a problem anymore.
Hello.
Good morning,
Hey,
guys. Hello,
Hey,
Chocolate.
Ranty.
Lampy.
Hey, Chocolate.
Yo,
Hey, Flatsoid.
what's going on, guys?
Ranty, where were you Saturday?
I forgot.
Say again?
I actually forgot about it.
Oh, God.
Yeah, you should have came up with something better.
It's the truth, though.
Yeah, I hear you. Be honest about it. Fuck it, I forgot.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell Porkies. It was the truth. I did forget.
Ranty, do you want to have the conversation now that we were going to have last night, but I was in bed?
Did we have a conversation last night?
Yeah, I was whispering.
Go on then.
Well, I think you were just debriefing, but I couldn't. I got to the point where Rumpus just wouldn't let me speak, and he wouldn't accept the possibility that my argument, which was that if you haven't got bonds between the molecules, you've not got mass. You've only got the mass of the object, the molecule in hand, and therefore you can't satisfy your own definition. He won't accept that no matter what. And there's only so many times that I can try and force him to answer that question, and he wouldn't do it. And he just argues like, oh, well, if we divide it by this, and he won't answer the question. Now, at the end of the day, there's only so many times I'm going to ask that before I just give up and go to bed, and that's ultimately what I did.
Yeah, I don't blame you, to be fair. You did a 3-hour stint, mate.
What's up with your mic, man?
Yeah, Tom was ace last night.
Who's Mike?
What's up with your mic, Anthony?
Oh, it might just be a bit too far away. Is that better?
No, he was drowning you out. I listened to a little bit of that friggin' nonsense last night.
Oh, you mean on the debate?
Why did he drown you out every time you spoke?
I don't know.
Don't know how they do that.
It was weird.
I'm going to start the live show.
As soon as he started speaking, he cut you out.
I'm going to start the live show.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion right here, right now, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Now we are joined by the one, Sleeping Warrior, Righteous Force, Ranty Flat Earth, I believe that's Paul, Flatsoid, Chocolate Sane, and 10th Man. How are you all doing?
Doing good. Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good.
Oh,
Good
hello.
morning.
Good afternoon.
Doing good, doing good.
Hello, hello. And we're also joined by, as I say, a whole bunch of people in Discord. So hello, one and all in Discord. You should all be off mute. Hey, QE.
Good morning.
Morning. Enthusiastic start. Any evidence of Earth curvature?
Not from Malibu Beach.
Yes.
Not in South Africa.
Shoot. Go ahead.
Okay, so
Hold on. Go ahead, Righteous.
it's climb a tree. I found this yesterday. You just climb a tree, and that's your evidence for Earth curvature.
Sorry.
Well, I guess I could present it. It'd be easier if I present.
What,
share
somebody
screen?
climbing a tree?
Yeah, that's what I got from a Google result. Okay,
What?
I'm sharing now.
Okay.
And there you go. It's from this site, Crosstalk, 7 ways to prove the Earth is round. And then when I got to 3, I said climb a tree. Because the further you climb, the further your line of sight will extend to the horizon. That's because parts of the Earth were concealed from view by its curvature are now revealed because your position has changed.
Oh, I see. What they're actually doing there is they're describing the effects of perspective and relabeling them Earth curvature. So as you climb higher, you can see further because you open up the angle of view. Oh, it's Adam. How you doing, Adam? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Hi guys.
Hello.
Yeah.
Good to have you. Oh, beautiful.
Sorry,
beautiful.
I'm on hold, so I'll mute.
Beautiful.
I thought he was in the I thought he was at a carnival.
A carnival? When do you get classical music on a carnival?
Oh, you've seen that. I mean, I've heard that, the carnivals with the merry-go-round with the horses and the kids.
Yeah, it's a carousel.
Oh yeah,
There you
carousel.
go.
Fair enough. So Earth curve, yeah. Climbing a tree just opens up your angle. So that's an effective perspective. Sod all to do with Earth curvature.
So they're trying to say get a little bit higher, you'll see a little bit more, and that's because you live on a ball. Because that won't work on a flat plane either, right? What a joke. Climb a tree. And that's one of their proofs for how you know Earth is a ball? Oh my God.
Yeah, when I went to view Liverpool's homecoming recently, there was that many people in although it was a wide area, big area, because of the volume of people or the amount of people, it made it so that you couldn't really see much beyond maybe 10 or 12 feet. You had to get higher to see over them because you couldn't see beyond them. The minute I climbed a lamppost or a set of traffic lights, I was unable to see right the way down the road. Now, it's not that I was seeing behind the curvature, it's that I was opening up the angle of elevation or the angle of observation so I could just see further. And that's what I noticed, and it was really pertinent that particular day. So it's not to do with curve, it's to do with your angle.
All right. Well, a little 5-year-old knows that it could see more when they say, "Daddy, put me on your shoulder so I can see." Like, really? this is where we're at right now? This is proof of the globe.
Yeah, that's right. That's where we're at.
Okay. All right.
Sounds a
Have
bit
at it.
like something that came from Brenda, climb a tree.
But amazingly, we've all just swallowed that, even though we were all taught what perspective was in primary school. when we've read these descriptions, me included, prior to finding out the reality of, wow, perspective, we didn't actually realise it. So it's not like that's where we're at. That's where we've been at for a very long time. They just took the effect of perspective and called it curvature. Any signs?
But during the course of my life, I've never climbed something to see more and thought, well, this is how I would see over the curvature. You just don't even think about that in regular life. You just know that
Precisely.
the higher you go, the more you can see.
Exactly. I never did that. I never thought that. I never thought, let me prove the globe. Well, I guess then I'm indicting myself, though.
Because I never experienced the globe, so
okay, well,
except on television.
Well, maybe I'm unique in that. Then I did think that. So this is part of the story I give when I describe how I found out the Earth was flat. When I was on the airlines, I was acutely aware that I wasn't at a high enough altitude to see what we now describe as the reified edge of a curve model, the horizon. Well, I wanted to see Earth curve, and I wanted to go higher. Now, although it's a slightly sloppy, simile, going up a tree is just getting higher in terms of your elevation. Well, that's what I wanted. I absolutely wanted to go higher. In fact, that was the very thought that went through my mind when I was looking out that back window, or those back windows on those planes. I wish I could go higher to see curve. That's what I wanted. I couldn't. I saw flatness.
I will back you up on that, because that's the only time I did kind of think about it. But I didn't think about it in respects to, I wish I was higher to see the curve. I thought I should be high enough, at the time. I mean, I'm talking about when I was a kid, when I was, a little bit older, teenager. I'm thinking, why don't I see this curve? It just doesn't look to me the way it's presented to me on television. So there were times, I guess, I was like, maybe I'm not high enough, but that's the only time I actually thought about it, because I wanted to see the curve from up there. But down here, I never thought about that. Down here, I'm like, yeah, it's flat plane. If I go on the second floor of my house, I could see more than on the first floor. Simple as that.
You actually thought of that?
Yeah, the only time I climbed a tree so I could see it in three dimensions.
Oh my God.
The only time I climbed a tree was to snatch the fruit. Plums, apples. Yeah, I never thought of that stuff, man.
Vince, were you affected by time?
Don't forget donuts.
Some of us climb the tree because we want to see the curve of the Earth. Some of us are just scrumping. Anyway, any signs of axial rotation?
What the hell is scrumping?
Look it up.
There's something else I remember from high school. I remember a biology teacher saying you can see the Earth curve if you climb a tree.
Well, that's a zealot.
I mean, I never tested it, but I was like, it just got imprinted in my mind. And it was like, how do you say it? I guess like pre-programming in a sense. And he probably got that pre-programming from somebody else, and he never checked it himself.
What branch of science was that?
Which branch of science supports curvature observations?
Right, are we segueing away then? Did you look at what scrumping was?
I'm definitely looking it up right now. That is too funny, man. Hold up.
Got context for a joke.
It has something to do with apples.
Yeah.
Brits call scrumping taking apples from trees we didn't own.
Yeah, stealing apples.
Stealing apples, yeah.
Stealing apples from the trees.
Okay,
The
implication.
Cool. Learn something new every day.
You just said, I was just climbing for the fruit. Whereas obviously by saying scrumping, it's an implication that you're a thief. Just a low blow by implication. That was all. But there's a joke.
But it wasn't. It wasn't, because I wasn't stealing anything. They were on public lands.
I realise that, but that's why the implication was that you were stealing things. Just a low blow. I'm not saying you were. That was the joke. But the point is that there's a bit in Red Dwarf where the
oh no,
gotta get it in. So there's a bit in Red Dwarf where they go to this prison ship, and it puts you through this like scanning tool that just decides if you're guilty of anything. And it goes, oh no, they're going to find out if we're guilty of things. And the robot's like, oh, you shouldn't have anything to worry about. It's like, yeah, but when I was a kid, I went scrumping. And he says, I'm sure, the robot says, I'm sure stealing a few apples won't get you imprisoned. He goes, yeah, but we used to go scrumping for cars.
Got
it. Yeah.
I've got a joke.
Go on.
Are we good for jokes?
Yeah, we're only on Earth Curve. It's only like 10 minutes in, one housekeeping question down. But yeah, go ahead. I have.
Riley and Rumpus live next door to each other. There's a chicken, and he's stood on the fence in between the two dividing properties, and he drops an egg, and the egg falls on one side of the fence, but the chicken belongs to the other side. So both people run out. Riley and Rumpus both run out, and they meet each other at the fence, and they start arguing over whose egg it is. The chicken belongs to Rumpus, but it's laid the egg on my side, so possession's 9/10 of the law. But Rumpus says, no, but you can't have the egg because you couldn't have the egg without the chicken. The egg is therefore mine. So an argument ensues over who actually owns the egg, because it's fallen on one side of the fence, but it shouldn't really be there, but it is there. So who owns the egg? So the only way they can decide how to settle this one is to basically have a fight. But Rumpus doesn't want to fight. So he suggests instead, rather than fight, what we'll do is we'll test out our man strength in some other way. So an arm wrestle is suggested, and it's refused. And then a joust is suggested, but it's refused. And in the end, it's decided that the man with the biggest pair of testicles is the one that wins. So basically, we're going to take turns. We're going to kick each other in the nuts, and the one that screams the loudest loses. So it's agreed that's what the rule is. So they decided Riley and Rumpus have to have a conversation about who goes first. Rumpus says, I'm a bigger man than you. I'll take any kick you can give me. Give me your worst. So Riley takes a couple of steps backwards, lines up a massive thwack, and whacks him as hard as he can in between his nuts. Rumpus doesn't let out a squeak. He absorbs it all like some kind of radioactive absorbing machine, and he doesn't make a single peep. To be honest, it was impressive. Riley kicked as hard as he could, and Rumpus absorbed all of it. Didn't make a squeak. Comes to Riley's chance. Rumpus says, right then, I didn't make a single noise there. He said, I'm sure you're going to scream now. He says, my turn. Riley just gives him the egg and fucks off.
What the hell? Oh my god.
I like it. The art of fighting without fighting, baby.
Yeah.
The dog is gonna catch up.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's how smart go-gets are.
It's the simplest ones that are the best. Shout out to Rumpus.
Any signs?
Hey, the way you started.
Any signs?
The way you started, you said Riley and Rumpus, and I was going back to scrumping, and I was thinking Riley and Rumpus sitting in the tree. I thought you were going to say that.
K-I-S-S-I-N-G.
We had that discussion about Ranty and Riley in the pre-show. I mean, short of them describing the post-coital cigarette they didn't have, there was talk of them chatting, pillow talk, Anthony getting tired and going to bed, whispering in his ear. It was all there, man.
I genuinely went to bed last night, but because Ranty wanted to debrief afterwards, he didn't think I'd actually gone to bed. He thought I'd rage quit, but I was genuinely in bed, and he rang, and I'm like, what do you want? I'm asleep. He's like, oh, right, I'll phone you tomorrow then. I said, okay, bye.
So, any signs of axial rotation of the testicular variety?
Was that of the Earth-based variety?
I actually said
Ranty of the Earth-based variety, yeah.
Yeah, no then.
No, that's of the axial-based variety.
Is there any way to taste this, though?
Taste it?
Taste. Can I taste it anyway?
Oh,
yeah, that's the problem.
It's the South African. Yeah, test. I thought you said taste. Like, any way to taste axial rotation? Yeah, it tastes. It tastes red.
I thought it tasted 14.
Tastes quite loud, deafening, in fact. Anyway, axial rotation. Anybody?
No axis.
No, I think the best argument they come up with is the sky seems to rotate, but for some reason they don't say it's the sky rotating, they say it's us. And we're like, really?
It's EQ mount. That's the argument. Always the EQ mount.
Look into the sky to denote that we're moving rather than measuring it.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
It's a force field.
What?
Just said last night that gravity was a force field.
Force field?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a bit confused.
Tell him how it happened.
No, gravity is a barrier, apparently.
No, he actually said it was a force field.
And it was the force field. Yeah, I got him to say that as well. He actually said that, what was it? It's a closed system as well, not an open system.
Yeah, he did. And I'm surprised you allowed him to get away with that, Ranty. I'd have jumped all over him on that.
Rumpus said it's a closed system.
Yeah.
While believing people went to the moon.
Well, he switches to suit, doesn't he? Depends on what the argument is. He flip-flops. Sometimes it's an open system. Sometimes it's closed. Last night it was a closed.
I did take a little quote of that last night. It's rockets, hydrogen, and helium-3, man-made rockets, and occasionally an oxygen molecule that's bashed hard enough to get entry, but you can't get out. That glass is just like the way gravity acts.
Like a force field.
What?
I want to break down some of these words.
What?
So, yeah, exactly. That was my reaction. Now it's yours as well. So let's break down these words a bit. So
the force field.
Yeah, force field. Let's break down that word a little bit. Is it one word or two? It's force field.
I would think that's 2 words.
Yeah, hyphenated? Come on. Force field. Let's break that down. So let's start with force. What's that?
It's an interaction, a push or a pull.
Does gravity do that?
It does balls. Bendy space-time.
Is that a no?
No.
Okay.
Yes, no.
So gravity's a force field, and so far it's not a force. What's a field? In this context.
Well, in the context, it would have to be something solid. Right? If we're talking about a force field.
Can you guys see my screen?
Look it up.
Can you guys see my screen on here?
Yep.
This is from physics.org. About 1 kilogram of material is escaping our atmosphere every second, amounting to almost 9 tons per day. So I guess the Earth is a closed system, according to that, right?
No, it's not. What are we talking about here?
Field.
What is a closed system?
Well, let me just define a field. A piece of land used for a particular purpose, especially an area marked out for a game or sport. An area of open land, especially one planted with crops for pasture, typically bounded by hedge or fences. So, field is a specific amount of area.
Would that be actual?
No. You got to get the field from physics, a region in which each point is affected by a force. So, it's sort of a tautology. Force field.
But it's everything gravity isn't.
Yeah,
exactly. According to my article, according to the article I just posted, this force field is very inefficient because there's so much that's escaping out. 90 tons per day.
Wait a second. Yeah, but wait a second. You got to get back to what a closed system is and an open system. So, an open system, a system that can exchange matter and energy with its surroundings, as opposed to a closed system, a system that can only exchange energy with its surroundings. So, is hydrogen and helium and rockets matter?
Yes, they are. Yes, and apparently those are capable in the open system that is described as the sky vacuum of being exchanged with the vast space that they can, according to this open system they claim the heliocentric model is, fill. So, yes, those interactions between those physical properties can absolutely take place with the open system claimed to be Earth. Yes.
Well, Nathan, if you
If
go look
it's
at their
one
report, it
hydrogen-
says it's
Hold
a
on.
system and open
Hold
system
on.
at the same time.
Hold on. If it's one hydrogen atom that goes from one system to the other in your fairy tale paradigm, then guess what? It's an open system. One. Just one. Clowns. Oh, and entropy doesn't apply to the Earth too, right, Rumpus? And air is not the atmosphere. What does atmo mean?
Means air.
Air. Dumbass.
Move on. Anything more? Flatsoid? Did you want to add something?
No.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Just a hole about 11 kilometers deep and a couple of squiggly lines.
And all the rest you get from movies.
Or conspiracy cats who bullshits that one. He pushes that.
About the distance to the sun?
What is the sun? Can't get its distance because we don't know its size. Can't get its size because we don't know its distance. So the reasoning we'll never find out.
You can only build on assumptions.
Speaking of assumptions, any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
Climate tree.
Take 2 sticks.
A flat plane does not have a radius. Spherical radius.
So the next couple.
Paul, why is it every time that you post something from NASA, one of these gas, either graphs or something, they've always got it in a container? Why is that?
Well,
I have no idea.
Well,
I was going to bring up something once we got to gas pressure. I'm waiting. So
yeah, that'll all get bundled in. Yeah, that'll all get bundled into the last question because it will revolve around what you're about to say first, presumably Paul, and then Dr. Daniel Faulkner. But the reason is because you can't have gas pressure without a container. To quote conspiracy cats, quote, "Without the container, there can be no pressure," end quote. Shout out to Alexandra for the super chat. Says, make it simple. And then a picture of a globe. And then a picture of a donkey, I believe. And then a picture of a poo with eyes. Lovely. Thank you very much for the super chat. Really appreciate your support. Okay, so if Paul can go first, I was going to bundle these together, but for the benefit of Paul, I won't. Any evidence you can have gas pressure without a container?
No.
Nope.
Hey, Nathan.
Hold on, Sleeping Warrior. I will definitely be having an extensive discussion on this topic with you, but go ahead, Paul. You're on screen.
Okay. Now, obviously, the way I understand gas pressure, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, what creates the pressure is the amount of collisions and how much kinetic energy is colliding with the walls of the container. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes,
that's correct.
The number of collisions, how much energy, and even the weight of the particle, the molecular weight of the particle also has a factor in that. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
Define weight.
Well, that's why I said chemical weight, because I think it's the size and the atomic structure of the particle itself. Like how many neutrons, protons, electrons, all that fun stuff.
So the higher the mole value.
Right. Well, I mean, my thing.
Let's get this square. I'm sorry, Paul. Go ahead, QE.
No, I said go on because chemical weight. What is weight? I don't want to go down that road. Just go on.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just a thought. I mean, it could be a thought experiment, it could be whatever. But I've asked this question to ballers on Discord. If you had the same volume, the same mole value, the same number of particles, and the same temperature of, let's say, helium in one volume and the oxygen molecule in a second volume, the only thing different is the particle itself. That's the only difference. You have the same amount, same temperature, same volume, which would have more pressure. And they all agreed that the oxygen, the O2, would have more pressure in it because of the nature of the particle itself. Now, that being said, now we say that it's the collision of particles and how much energy has been exerted, or how many collisions are going on to the walls of the container, as this is illustrating. Now, here's something they always bring up: the weight of the gas above us. Remember, that's the standard argument. Well, if gas is colliding with us, how's their weight above us? Well, when I looked up weighing a gas, every time I pull one up, you know the funny thing they always seem to have to weigh the gas?
Container.
It's a container. You have to contain the gas to even weigh it. So how do you?
Last night.
I was going to say.
And that's why I'm bringing this up, because I've been saying. I mean, I've been thinking about that, because I'm like, it's the amount of collisions that's hitting my body, and the amount of force that's hitting my body is creating the pressure. It's really not the weight that's causing it. It's the collisions. Would you agree, Q? Am I missing this, or am I getting this right?
No, I'd agree with that.
Okay. So you can't say there's weight above you. It's the amount of collisions, right? Because you can't even weigh the gas unless you contain it. So how do you weigh the gas that's not contained? So how can you prove that there's a weight of air above you if you can't?
That was a bit Rumpus was just not accepting. If you don't have a container,
hold on.
contain it.
Give the answer again. You spoke over him. Just give the answer again, Sleeping Warrior.
If you don't have a container to contain the molecules to weigh the weight, then because you don't have any cohesion between the particles, you don't have any bonding between the particles, you haven't got any particles, you've got no mass. So what you're doing is you're trying to capture a fart and measure a fart, the weight of a fart, and you can't. So how do you measure the weight of a fart? You can't. There's no mass there to weigh.
Exactly. That was my point. So, technically, the argument that there's air and weight above us, they can't.
Sorry to overtalk you. I just want to be a bit more careful. We've got to be hyper-specific. There's no combined mass because it's unbonded.
Yeah, there's no cohesion between the particles. The particles that smell, right, they're not connected. So that lack of cohesion means there's no unified mass. You have lots and lots of little particles, but there's no mass. You have lots of little particles that we refer to as masses, but they're not mass. So the lack of cohesion means that it's not mass.
So, in other words, the atmosphere, they're attempting feebly, I might add, to treat the atmosphere as a single entity when it is not. It is an inhomogeneous, anisotropic mixture of gases.
Yes.
You clowns.
It's the lack of cohesion
That's the point.
that makes it masses.
One of the questions I've asked Zanuck many times is, what's the weight of that gas particle that's accelerating away from the Earth? How do you weigh that? How do you weigh that particle? It's accelerating away.
You don't, so I'll give a concise answer to this one. It's a contradiction in terms. If weight is this 9.8 meters per second downwards, then a gas particle accelerating upwards isn't that. You have a complete contradiction.
Thank you. I'm done.
And Riley, even if there was cohesion between the bonds of the gas, they still don't have gravity because it's still the bending of a concept.
I know. I only gave them gravity so that
then
we
it wouldn't
didn't
be a
spend any
gas.
time arguing.
Hold on. If it was bonded, it wouldn't be gas.
Yeah, it'd be a solid.
Right, but I'm saying you're arguing about there's no cohesion between them. Well, that's no point because they don't have any force that's doing anything to anything.
I know.
So what the hell?
I know. I only gave them gravity.
I know you know, but
so that I didn't get into the back and forth on gravity and lose the point on mass. But Rumpus won't let me speak, so Rumpus wins by not letting me speak. It's like strangling someone. You can't argue with them if they're being strangled of air, and that's what he does.
Got you. It's like a double prong attack. You're going at them for the mass, not gravity.
Well,
gravity's already dead anyway. So
We summarised this a few days back, and it was made comparable to my 3-year-old. That's what children do.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
There's one more housekeeping question. So if it's not on topic, can it wait? But if it is, go ahead.
No, it's with gas pressure.
Go ahead.
If you take an engine, it's got compression, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you have to put a hole in that engine, would that have compression anymore?
No. Well, it would have greatly reduced compression at the very least.
So all that compression gases will disperse.
Yeah, they'll get forced out the hole.
And this is at where gravity is the strongest.
At ground
At sea level.
Yeah. Yeah, an engine's another example of containment.
And one more example that somebody should soon try and do is weighing a helium fish tank turned upside down on a scale. I want to see Rumpus claiming that this is down.
But you can easily, there's a much more simplistic example of the same thing you're saying, the one, which is you put a helium balloon on a scale and you get a weight when it's empty. Then you fill it with helium balloon. Do you still get a weight on the same scale? Oh no, it's going up. Well, it's not going to have a 9.8 meters per second attributable to it when it's going away from the scale. And their weight is their gravity, the downward force, right? Well, is it moving down instantaneously? It is simplistic. So when you just say, yeah, helium balloon debunks that, people will not often just hand wave that. Like, no, it doesn't. Yeah, we know why balloons go up. The gravity of the Earth is pulling the gas, the inhomogeneous anisotropic mixture of gases, down, forcing the balloon up. That's not possible. The gases, all of them, are moving randomly and freely, unbonded, in all directions. So no, that's not applicable. So a helium balloon genuinely does debunk this nonsense when you're asserting as a force, which there isn't. It's a concept now. It's a bending of a conceptual medium for things to move along in time. Go ahead.
And apparently the only thing that's making the distinction between what's going up and what's going down are the relative densities between the medium and the thing. So, yeah. But they still claim that relative density is not a thing.
I don't know if that's a misrepresentation of their position. They incorporate relative density into the gravity equation, and they call it buoyancy. So that's a bit of a misrepresentation to say that they say it's not real. They just incorporate it with gravity. But it works on things that are bonded. As soon as you get into the anisotropic mixture of gases that we have in our atmosphere, atmo being air, sphere being a fundy presupposition, i.e. when you use that word atmosphere, you are automatically begging the question of a sphere Earth and the gases being capable of defying natural law all of a sudden, because you've attributed this word atmosphere to them. Atmo just means air. Sphere just means fundy presupposition of a heliocentric world in this context. Right, any more on gas pressure without a container, because I want the next subject to get the most attention. And I've got a super chat to shout out.
Oh, space is big.
Okay, shout out to Joseph369. Any evidence of a Terminator line? That's a very good question. Might not be one for today. We might get it in. Hopefully we will address your question, Joseph. It's a very, very good point. Thank you very much for the super chat. Also shout out
I have the Terminator line.
Not that kind of Terminator. Not sent back from the future to destroy all globe heads. Also shout out to Vlad on Flat Earth. Science and senses prove flat and stationary Earth. About science on that one. Not really a causal relationship, but I appreciate your sentiment and definitely thank you very much for the super chat, Vlad on Flat Earth. Yeah, science is pretty narrow. It's establishment of cause. So, cause, flat, nah, sorry. I hate to do it when someone's giving me money, but I can't do it, I'm sorry. Anyway, right, so, last but by no means least, is there any evidence in the entire history of cosmology, astronomy, or astrophysics of any viable hypotheses?
Hold on, I just got unmuted right now. Could I add one more thing to the gas pressure?
Timing.
We're talking about?
Of course you can, go ahead, Babs.
Someone said that gases don't have any bonds between them, but that's not true. They have weak intermolecular bonds between them.
So you think
Yeah,
gases?
the bonds are very loose.
So you think the gas is all bonded together?
No.
Do you want to explain? Do you want to expand on what you mean?
Sure. If we're looking at a given gas, not the atmosphere as a whole, in a given gas, you can observe intermolecular bonds between the molecules of that gas.
Oh, of course, yeah. That's why they've got such long names in so many instances. Yes, I appreciate that.
Hold on a second. Say that one more time.
I said that if you observe a given gas, you will be able to see intermolecular bonds.
No. Intramolecular bonds, not intermolecular bonds, or it wouldn't be a gas.
Yeah, you're right. Intramolecular forces.
That's a new one on me.
Thank you.
Sorry, you'll have to clarify that English. You'll have to excuse my ignorance. Intra, meaning inter, I get. Intra?
Intra.
What's the difference?
Within the molecule itself. Like O2, there's intra, inside O2. Inter means a connection between other molecules. There is none in gases.
But intra means internal. Because I appreciate what he meant, even though his terminology was slightly wrong. But this is a very subtle distinction, but it's important. Because intermolecular, if I could say it, intermolecular bonds would imply that it's no longer gas. The entirety of the structure, each of those separate particles are bonded, therefore no longer gas. But at a molecular level, there may be different properties to each part, and that would be an intramolecular bonding, correct?
Yeah, under appropriate conditions, the attractions between all gas molecules will cause them to form liquids or solids.
Yeah, but that's temperature and pressure.
Yeah, that is due to temperature and pressure, and that's intermolecular forces. But QE is correct when he says that the intramolecular forces are those within the molecule that keep the molecule together, which is completely different.
Sure, that's why you've got like sulfur dihexafluoride. Well, that name is the list of all of the composition. Well, yeah, it's not one thing, as you're correctly identifying, but that doesn't mean that each of those are not bonded on an intermolecular level. I'm only just learning this English, so as you can probably tell in the audience. No, they are bonded on. Yeah, they are bonded on an intramolecular, but not bonded on an intermolecular level.
Correct.
Perfect.
So the intramolecular bond is what would keep the two O2s together.
Yeah.
Why you would have O2. Right, gotcha.
Anyway, there was something else that you mentioned, and I'm not 100% clear on this myself. You said that, I'm going to paraphrase, if you apply lots of pressure to a gas and you pack them as tightly as they can be packed, so they have no physical area to move around in within the container that's been squashed, then does that mean that they are suddenly bonded as fluids or exhibit fluid-like behavior? Sorry. Yeah, was that the correct word? Fluid? Yes.
No, liquid-like behavior.
Yeah, I thought I was wrong. Liquid-like behavior, when it would be the terminology would be fluid, because it's exhibiting liquid-like behavior because it's tightly packed together, but it's not actually bonded as a liquid. But because it behaves as such when it's shoved all together very closely, you get the description of fluids, i.e. gases that are tightly packed, or bonded liquids, which are two still...
I hate that.
It's just a bit of a tongue
twister,
isn't it?
I hate that term, fluid.
Fluid, yeah, it's a bugger, because it's artificial in the respect that you're condensing this gas down to the point where it's, squashed so closely together that it could appear as though it's bonded, but at a fundamental level it still is not bonded at an intermolecular level. Go ahead, Ten. The one. Say that again.
That process is called liquefaction.
No, liquefaction is when you vibrate a solid and it becomes a liquid.
That's what they call it with gases. They say that nitrogen can be liquefied. And
really?
They named it liquefaction.
Oh, okay. So it's the same term when you go from being a gas to being squashed to the point of having some sort of fluid dynamics applicable.
Yeah, that's what they call it in industry, though.
Liquefaction? I did not know it was applicable in that respect. Wow, you learn something new every day.
Yeah.
So scrumping.
Yeah, I'm going to re-ask the question, the last housekeeping question. Hopefully, we've still got 20 minutes. Excellent. So, any evidence in the entirety of the histories of cosmology, astronomy, or astrophysics of any viable hypothesis?
Not by Danny Faulkner.
Not according to Michio Kaku either.
Not according to Neil deGrasse Tyson. You there, Sleeping Warrior? We discussed this on the pre-show, if he's not, so I'll give a little warmer-upper till he comes off mute. Hopefully I'll drag out what I say as long as till he comes off mute. But Sleeping Warrior was in a discussion thread with Dr. Daniel Faulkner and lots of his minions. And to cut a long story short, at the point that he's asking Dr. Daniel Faulkner to verify scientifically the conceptual medium of space-time being bent to give rise to a geodesic for something to travel along, when this was originally highlighted as a point excluded from his explanation when it comes to having gas pressure without a container, i.e. gravity as a force in this regard. So Anthony's brought him on this comment thread to the point where he has accepted that his omission of Einsteinian mechanics in this regard was unjustified because he accepts that many PhDs describe gravity in the Einsteinian context as not being a force, and it is not, according to Daniel Faulkner, contradictory when they then go on to say it is a force, even though it's absolutely contradictory. So, at this point, Anthony asks for scientific validity, and one of the trolls on this forum, Facebook in this instance, states that it is not necessary to vary an independent variable in order to gain scientific validity. Anthony then provides 10... yeah, exactly. Anthony then provides 10 citations, completely dismissing that notion and proving beyond any but reasonable person who had any scientific acumen would understand. I.e., yes, you need to vary a variable to prove cause of an effect. That's science. Now, this may look terrible on Daniel Faulkner for not addressing the person that's standing between him and the actual questions being raised. And as I understood it from what was read out on yesterday's debate, so if you want to check out Nathan Oakley channel and the Uncut and After show, I believe it's 10:36, that has got the discussion being read out. Unfortunately, Anthony's screen share didn't work, so we didn't actually get to see it, but he was reading it out as he was typing it and getting replies. And the only rebuttal was from Daniel Faulkner to say, "You don't understand," and then remove Anthony from the group. So Anthony's now been removed from that chat thread. And the reason was because he was at the stage where he was asking for scientific validity to be given to this idea that you can have a conceptual medium bent to give rise to a not actual force called gravity. So that's where we're at, and I was hoping Anthony could give us his summary, or he's still not come off mute in my entire... I dragged that out as much as humanly possible. It still hasn't come off mute. Isn't that great? Timing is impeccable.
I can tell you were dragging it out.
Ugh, maybe your comments, QE, and then hopefully Anthony will rejoin this conversation when he pricks his ears up. Or when we've moved on to a different subject, he'll come back and go, "Oh, by the way, Danny Faulkner."
No, I didn't have anything to add. I could tell you were dragging it out purposely, though. It was pretty funny.
Okay, well, I'll just give a conclusion as Sleeping Warrior's not here. He's here in spirit. So the bottom line is, in this thread, and Anthony raised this as one of the points he put out when he was taken out of what would be described as a sin bin. I don't understand how Facebook works. Nevertheless, he returns and says, "Look, you're allowed to spout nonsense if you're on the Globe side of this argument, but if you put up any rebuttal or challenge, you'll be removed. So don't put up any challenge to any Globe-head assertions here." And then was allowed to then put what I mentioned earlier in a very elongated way across in this comment thread. So Anthony's asking for science. they're asserting that you can have not actual forces, and the contradictions aren't contradictions when you say those not actual forces are forces. But upon asking for scientific validity, Anthony was removed. That's the effect. That's the state of the world we live in. If you ask for empirical evidence, i.e. actual science, and then get told that no, you don't need to adhere to the method of science to get scientific validity, I can just make up a story and call it science, and you knock that down with 10 citations, and then ask again for actual scientific validity for the just so stories that this pseudoscientist, let's be honest, Dr. Daniel Faulkner has asserted, then you will be removed. That's a glorious position. Now that I've explained it all, I'll change the tone entirely and say, this is a wonderful position to be in, and I've said it before. We are flat earthers, and we are asking questions about having scientific validity to the assertion that we live on a spinning ball flying through a vacuum around the light in the sky we call the sun. Now, when we ask for scientific validity, we get removed. And why? Well, because they want to assert in that comment thread that there's a not actual force caused by the bending of a conceptual medium known as space-time that allows gas pressure to defy a natural law. That's what they want to be able to assert. And hell be it for anybody who comes in and says, have you got any scientific validity for this? So just take solace, anybody who's out there that gets tortured and tormented by globeheads who are in consensus. The truth is definitely on our side. When you ask for scientific empiricism for any assertion that the Earth is a sphere, you will not get it. You'll be removed, and you can smile when you are, because it says it all. It speaks volumes. You ask for science, you'll be removed. Still no sleeping warrior.
He's still not here.
That's okay. I summarised it as much as I could anyway. Just we had the first-hand account on the pre-show from Anthony, so subscribe today to Nathan Oakley channel. There is a link in the info box. If you're not already subscribed to the second channel, that's where the majority of the Uncut and After shows go out, and quite often there is some fascinating conversations that take place before these shows go live. I appreciate most of the audience watching now only watch the live show. Obviously, there's a smaller audience on the second channel. But some of the key moments have happened when people are that little bit more relaxed because there's not a live show going out. So, if it's fantastic, I'll trim it out and stick it out on the main channel anyway. But on the whole, it's well worth subscribing. So subscribe today, link in the info box to Nathan Oakley channel. And you can see that conversation there. It'll go out at 10 PM UK time this evening. You can hear Anthony discussing his woes. And it's weird because the other day, 10th man, I don't know if you're still here, when Anthony first had his rebuttal of hillbilly blue balls, gas pressure gradient in 2 containers, Anthony was like, oh, this is terrible. And you're trying to explain to him, no, it's fantastic. It's so brilliant because now we've got him over a barrel having cited hillbilly blue balls. Wonderful day. And Anthony at the time's like, but how could he do that? It's kind of torn in your reaction to this sort of stuff. And Anthony getting removed, it was the same. He's like, oh, they've removed me. I'm like, wonderful. You ask for scientific validity and you get removed so that they can talk double speak about non-contradictions with forces that are called non-forces, that they will need to be forces to hold gas pressure without a container in violation of laws. Wonderful, wonderful. Happy days.
Yes, we are in happy days.
Exactamundo.
You have something you want to present, Paul? Screen sharing.
Oh, I'm not screen sharing.
It's Ranty. Sorry, Ranty, did you want to get something in?
Yeah. I was down on the beach again today. I noticed that gravity had a day off again. The Earth wasn't as curved as they said it should be.
Oh, that's bad.
Huh?
That's bad.
That's really bad. I mean, I'm surprised it didn't fly off, with having no gravity pulling me down. But certainly the water wasn't acting as it should. And what you're going to see in a second should have been all hidden by Earth curvature from nearly 24 miles away. All these buildings over here that you're seeing, Earth curve should have been in the way, but gravity clearly wasn't working today. and that's why we can see them. Pretty astonishing, really, isn't it?
Where's this taken?
This was down from the bottom of the ramp at the Mirror Ball today. I'll probably put this video out today. I'll just fast forward it a little bit. There we go. You can see these buildings. Ooh. There they are, all on the horizon, way over there from an elevation of approximately 15 feet. 200 feet, even including standard refraction, should have been missing. Those buildings are only 167 feet tall. None of them should have been visible, but obviously we saw them, so I assume gravity had a day off. What do you say, Nath?
What are they? What are the buildings?
Devonshire Dock Hall, Barrow in Furness from 23.7 miles away. I've got it up on Google Earth, actually. So that chimney that you were looking at there, the chimney is right here. So this is the chimney, as you can see it with the two chimney stacks. Different types of buildings that are on top. There's a building right here that you see in the video. There's this building here, which is Devonshire Dock Hall, which is also in the video, and other parts of Devonshire Dock Hall over here. And yeah, it's a long way away, mate. 23.75 miles away today from the bottom of the ramp at the Mirror Ball. Way, way, way down here. The tide was at 3 meters. High tide envelops where I was standing, so I was able to get a pretty accurate height above actual sea level, which would have been about 15 feet. Also, I went along, so that was the tide times today, which I've brought up. But I've put the distances into Metabunk, so we're going with Mick West here. He says that including refraction, 198 feet should be missing. So, you know, those buildings shouldn't have been seen. And I also went and checked the surf report today, so we did have quite a bit of swell. We had about a 2 foot swell, and we had around about 2 foot of chop as well on the waves. So yeah, it was just interesting. And I saw this post. Did you see this yesterday, Nate? I put it on my show last night.
I've seen it before. I actually had one of these as a kid. It's a dynamic system in a closed bottle.
Yeah, but this has been going for 60 years.
Yeah,
but I like the little part at the end. The bottle is essentially a microcosm of Earth, and they don't even realize that it's all contained in a container.
Perfect. Thank you, Ranty.
Yeah, no worries.
It looks like gravitational looming to me.
Oh, the video gravitation.
Yeah, actually, just while you've got the video up, just if you can just pause it on any frame, that's perfect. So
yeah,
that's Devonshire Dock Hall. We see it because that's where Devonshire Dock Hall is. That's the explanation for us as flat earthers. End of explanation. Devonshire Dock Hall. What'd you say the distance was?
23.75 miles.
Devonshire Dock Hall at 23.7 miles. End of explanation as a flat earther. Short pause. As a globe head, that's not the Devonshire Dock Hall. That would be a slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena holographic projection of the Devonshire Dock Hall from behind the reified edge of an Earth curve based on an R value and a begging the question, proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator to turn the Devonshire Dock Hall from a Devonshire Dock Hall that we as flat earthers say is just there because we see it into a mirage. It's not a mirage. It's just the Devonshire Dock Hall. The Earth is obviously and observably flat. Thanks, Ranty.
No worries.
Also, I liked your closed system, although you strapped it on at the end. But, as we've got a couple of minutes left, Terminator line. I quite like that one, because there is no Terminator line. It's a concept that they use on a sphere Earth. You turn and there's a little black line that moves across the Earth as it comes into the line of sight of the sun. Well, in reality, we don't have that, do we? Anybody who's watched a sunrise will appreciate that the sun just fades in. It doesn't come with a dark line behind it at any point, at any altitude. You're never going to see that. We had Pillbox on who showed us a sunset from altitude, and it just slowly fades out. It doesn't have a line. There is no Terminator line. It's a complete load of nonsense.
There is one Terminator
I mean,
line.
to me, I could be wrong, but to me, it feels like if there was a Terminator line, if we were a ball spinning in that manner, that it would just literally be like turning a light on and off. Like it would just appear sun. Oh, look, sun. It
Well, it
wouldn't
would be.
fade in and fade out the way it does with sunsets.
Well, not only that, when you see it depicted in their CGI models, it's like consistent across the surface of their reified ball, Earth. Well, in reality, depending on the time of year, sunset can come like that really quickly. Just the sun goes, normally in winter. Whereas in the late summer months, you can have really long twilight hours. Like really, really long twilight hours. In other words, it's massively varied depending on the time of year. So this idea of a line, it's just, to me, so preposterous.
I can just imagine running from this line.
I'm
gonna escape the Terminator. I love it, Ranty.
That would be like a game. It'd be like, oh look, there's the line. It's coming. You know, you'd be able to see it.
Well, guys, they've done this in a movie with Vin Diesel, The Chronicles of Riddick.
Yep. I know what you're talking about.
Simon Dan in the chat says Nathan being confused at nature again. Well, you're welcome to join the panel, Simon Dan.
Yes, man. Come on through, butter.
Don't shout from the sidelines. Come and join.
That's why he's Sideman Dan.
I had a message from Dearth about Simon Dan. So he sends me a link to a Simon Dan video and he says, free channel promotion again. And the link to a video that looks like it's got a thumbnail saying something about blimps. Can't quite read it. It's funny colours. My response, you watch Simon Dan? Question mark. So yeah. Dearth appreciates your advert by the sounds of things, Simon Dan. Not that I was aware that you'd given him an advert.
There is only one Terminator line, and that's the flat line. Because it terminates the globe.
Did you guys see that? There's a clip that somebody did out in the ocean on a really calm night / day, because he flips the camera 180 degrees and he can see the sun fading in on one side and it's quite light, and as he flips around it's pitch black. But he's not sat on a line. You know, he's just at the point where the sun's just coming into view and he can see one side of his periphery light and one side dark. There's no bloody line, though.
Yeah, but it's a gradient.
It implies that at the point the sun, the direct lines of sunlight hit the Earth as it turns, there's gonna be, that's what it's necessitated by the way that model works. And as it turns, as this reified Earth turns, that line would move along it. The terminator, as the word implies, between light and dark, the termination of the light and the beginning of the dark. But you've only got to experience a sunrise or a sunset to appreciate that that does not happen. That's not how the world presents itself at all. It's not even, it doesn't even require debunking, in my humble opinion, because it's so preposterous. You've only got to go out and actually experience the world for a fleeting moment at those times, sunrise or sunset, to know that you don't have like the sun appear on the horizon and suddenly the light appears. In fact, you can wait an eternity in some instances, not an eternity, a very long time, to even see the sun. But it gets light, it's getting lighter. Oh, it's really light. Oh, there's the sun over the horizon. You know, it doesn't work the way it's described in the model. And with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who tuned in on the Nathan Oakley 1980 live stream, for smashing the super chat, hopefully sharing and subscribing and all that good stuff. Stay tuned if you're watching on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream. And as I say, if you're watching live and you're not subscribed to Nathan Oakley channel, then hit the link in the info box below this video. Of course, a massive thank you to all of today's Discord and G+ panels for making this live show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on the premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Any signs of Sleeping Warrior?
I was going to say, Nathan, it's pre-light, then you have the sun, then you got post-light. It's almost like a dimmer.
Yeah, dusk or twilight.
Day, thanks for reminding me about that from Chronicles of Riddick when they're running from the sunrise.
Yeah, discriminate one.
Yep.
That was the favorite scene of mine too. It was really good. I actually like the sequel better than the first, or the sequels.
What was the first one called? Something dark. I can't remember what it was called.
Pitch Black.
Pitch Black. That's it.
And then the second one was Chronicles of Riddick. Pretty good.
Pretty good. Both terrible.
Vin Diesel himself, I don't really like that much, but the movies itself, like the story was alright.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of him until I seen those movies. I don't know. I like that character and those movies.
A conception.
You know, it's funny because I'm thinking yesterday how ahead of the game Mel Brooks was with putting that force field around the earth. It's too funny to me, man. Because it's
So what are you
like,
saying? The ballers watch too much Mel Brooks?
well, maybe they don't watch enough. Mel Brooks knows you can't. You have to separate the air from the no air, otherwise the joke in the movie wouldn't work.
But now they say it's a force field. That's what
Well,
I meant.
that's just. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. That's the new shit. Like who? Like Rumpus really said that? Like it's a force field now. Didn't he get that from George? Didn't George say that a few weeks ago? Something about a dome. We were calling him a dome field or some shit.
Yeah, that's right. It was George Netanyahu said there was a force field. Correct. So we said, oh, dome field.
What Mel Brooks movie are you referring to?
Spaceballs, the movie.
Oh, I was thinking the Blazing Saddles.
Nah. Spaceballs, man. When Mega May comes to suck the air.
I've never seen that movie.
Never seen Spaceballs, bro?
Never.
That's a classic. You gotta watch it, especially just for this context, because the whole I think one of the main subplots is like there's an air shortage, and they've got this field or dome or some type of force field around the Earth, and with a door that literally opens up. So that things can get it in and out. Yeah, it's funny, man.
Now I'm gonna have to go watch it.
Yep.
Just type in Mega Maid into YouTube and they'll show you the visual scene that he's describing. It's just a sphere Earth with a glass dome all the way around it and then a hatch that they let the rockets and spaceships in and out of. And then the evil force of the Schwartz comes along with Mega Maid, which is just one of the giant ships from Star Wars that transforms into this giant maid with a literal hoover that sucks up all of the air by lifting the hatch on this great big glass dome around this sphere Earth in Spaceballs, and it just sucks all the air out, leaving everyone on the planet to suffocate.
All right, I'm watching it now on my phone on mute. It's a 4 minutes and 59-second clip. Man, Darth Vader is short.
It's Rick Moranis.
That's Dark Helmet.
Dark Helmet, yeah, played by Rick Moranis.
That's hilarious.
Bro, this movie is so good, man. You gotta watch it, Tim. The whole thing.
I see. Okay, I see the glass around the air.
Right, so just for the audience's benefit, note the difference in the joy in Chocolate Saiyans' voice whilst describing the movie Spaceballs, and then compare that to, Chronicles of Riddick. Yeah, good movie. Yeah.
The bus in space. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, Spaceballs I grew up with Spaceballs, so that Chronicles of Riddick could never hold a candle to that. Not Dark Helmet. Man, it's Schwartz be with me.
It's in a weird time where, you know, late 90s, there was a lot of really cracking movies being made, whereas that just wasn't one of them.
I've been watching an old series. I think it was from the 90s as well. Babylon 5. If you guys remember that, anybody watched that?
Yeah, I watched a few Babylon 5 episodes. It's basically like Star Trek, I suppose. It's the closest thing.
Right. Yeah, right. But you know what they call the Earth when they're referring to? Oh my goodness, Lily! Every time. Why can't I talk?
Planet reification.
Yeah, but basically they say every time they call and talk to Earth from Babylon 5, they call it Earth Dome. Every time. It's not Earth. It's Earth Dome. Think about that. It's like, why would they even have to say that? They're talking about Earth, and why they call it Earth Dome?
Because they love the dome.
You know, but I mean, of course, there's Mars Dome, which means they're on Mars and they've got this thing. But why dome? Why do they have to keep using dome? Earth Dome. So I think it's a subliminal thing going on. I think
because you can't have air pressure without a container.
There's a conspiratard theory that that's what they would do if they ever claimed that we're shipping people out to Mars. This conspiratards say that no, they'll just ship them to another dome or another puddle. In other words, this is kind of punted by the infinite plane people. So you've got all this vast area, and you just transpose some of the ideas that are space with planets that are places, remove the light in the sky aspect from it, and then put that on the plane, and you end up with, you know, them saying we're going to ship you out to a light in the sky, but actually just shipping you to another part of the plane under a different dome, maybe. You know, maybe with a similar scenario, Mega made hatch at the top of it to let you in.
That reminds me a bit of the Antarctica domes.
Well, here's something else about that too.
They're geographic domes, though. I said that the moment that subject came up. So frequently things just get hand waved. I'm not moaning, but it's just a geographical term. Anyway.
Do you know how they create gravity on Babylon 5, the space station? Do you remember?
Yeah, a centrifuge. It was similar to what Kubrick depicted.
Right. Yeah. So basically, the inhabitants live on the inside of it as it spins. Well, I always think it's funny now that I've been watching that when Zanuck gets on, and he says put some air in a bucket and spin it over your head, and you'll produce gravity.
Right.
I'm going like. Okay, so we're actually either spinning according to that mentality, or we're accelerating upward like the flat Earth. So really, are you helping your cause? It's like you're not helping your cause at all.
I think that's
that illustration.
No, I'm pretty sure that Zanuck occasionally moonlights for the concave Earthers, and that's just a throw over from that.
Exactly, because I was thinking about that too. Like you have to spin centrifugally to get that gravitational force, so that means concave Earth is right, or the flat Earth is right. We're accelerating upward at 9.83 meters per second squared.
Or we're not doing either. Just equilibrium is what we have.
Oh, I agree. I'm just saying that they don't realize what they're saying when they say it.
It's always got to be something spinning that creates the gravity, right? Like, you guys remember Event Horizon, the thing that created the machine they had in the ship that created the gravity and then opened the hole and for them to go through.
Event
like
Horizon.
That thing was spinning.
It's a good.
I'm sorry.
That's a good movie. So I haven't watched it since being a flat earther, but nevertheless, from memory, that's a horror movie, isn't it? Event Horizon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's creepy.
Yeah. I loved it.
I do vaguely remember it. It's not.
It's Paul W.S. Anderson's really only one good movie.
Yeah, I do remember that being a very good movie and scary too.
Yeah, it was a little. At the time, it was pretty good. Lawrence Fishburne, Sam Neill. It was good.
Yeah,
but very focused on gravity, very focused on black holes and shit. So
and they have this theory.
so many movies I now kind of want to go back and revisit now that I've seen it in a different view, you know, it's to see if it's still.
Yeah, same here. Well, it's part of the namesake. So Event Horizon is the point you reach where you would no longer be able to escape the gravitational pull of a black hole. So beyond the Event Horizon, spaghettification awaits. Exciting, eh?
But in Event Horizon,
that's the thing. The ship opened the ship originally had a crew on it, and they opened an Event Horizon. They went through it, and then the ship got lost. And then all of a sudden, the ship came back, appeared out of nowhere, no crew, and that's what the new crew has to go and find out. That's what happens.
Well, I just saw the vacuum of space in Spaceballs.
She's gone from suck to blow.
It would have been easier just to open the door and let all the air go out.
What I like is when she blows the air back in, like there's certain other aspects. You know, we describe, well, if the sky was a vacuum, all the water would evaporate off. But in the Mega Maid depiction, all of the snow gets sucked off the top of the mountain peaks. But when she goes into blow, it all returns perfectly. You know, it goes back how it was.
And the trees go back in.
Yeah, the trees, exactly. They've just replaced the model and played it backwards. It's just comical.
I think I'm going to go buy this movie. I'm going to watch it.
I've got another one for you. This is Subliminal at its finest. This is from another 1990s series, Earth's Final Conflict. Lily, why do you always wait till I talk before I get to talk? Okay. This is from Earth. It's from Earth's Final Conflict. It's a Gene Roddenberry series that came out that they produced, I think, after his death. But look at the name of this cafe that's in. This is a screenshot from the movie. What does it
say? Hold on, I'll put it on screen.
Flat Planet Cafe.
Flat Planet Cafe. So what is it about these 90 TV series that are doing these subliminal Earth Dome, Flat Planet? What's up with that?
Along with 9/11.
Maybe it's them secretly trying to explain it, even though they're trapped in the whatever cabal making them make space real.
Maybe. I just think that's interesting. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, anything's possible at this point, right?
And if you know, in the newest Norvell, there was an episode. Remember that? It's the new series out here in the U.S. I don't know if you get it in the U.K., but it's like a spoof on Star Trek. Literally a spoof on Star Trek, but made by, I think it's Seth MacFarlane made it. And there's an episode in the first season where they come across this ship that the inhabitants don't know that they're inside of a ship. It's like they're an enclosed system. And then, of course, the elite know that it's a ship, and they're about to die because they're about to run into a sun. So another enclosed subliminal message in the sci-fi series. One of these subliminal messages in sci-fi.
That's I haven't seen that, but I think it was at the Seth MacFarlane. Jesus, what have you ever seen the documentary Room 137? I think.
237.
That's it, right? Like if that's what Kubrick was doing with The Shining, that's like I don't know. Is there too many coincidences there to not be some form of could be?
Okay, there's a couple of things with that. So there's the point of view that you can overanalyze a movie. So you could have a situation where someone says this lampshade with its tassels is symbolic of or foreshadowing of the hanging that comes later in the movie. And that's the interpretation that you've given after analysing the movie. And then you go and ask the director and go, was this lampshade there to foreshadow the hanging that comes later in the movie? And the director goes, no, it's just a lampshade. I just picked it up from the prop department.
No, totally. I've directed stuff before too, and it's sort of like I just pick a chair. I'm not worried. I don't care. It's just whatever that chair is, like whatever is easiest and cheapest, get that. But you got to think that Kubrick was not your typical director, especially given the amount of time in between movies. And I hear you totally. I get it. Just a really interesting thing when the kid stands up with the Apollo 11 T-shirt or sweater after getting the ball thrown. I don't know. That's man, that's kind of fun to think about.
Okay, well, there is two ways of looking at that, which is to say, number one, at a subconscious level, there is a high likelihood that people like film directors can unintentionally imply what you've just suggested he implied with the sewn jumper with the Apollo rocket on it. But there's another interpretation. So check out Rob Ager's channel. Collative Learning is his main channel, and he does an exceptionally good job of breaking down not only what he considers to be the false interpretation of the documentary Room 237, not only based on the fact that 237 has never actually been a stated distance to the moon. If you take some of the averages, it doesn't even come out to that, but at its furthest, it's 239,000 anyway, so it's not really relatable in terms of the room number to the distance. That's the first thing. Now, that's not my analysis that's actually been put out there as an analysis. Rob Ager did that. So check out Collative Learning. But he also highlighted things.
Yeah, I just did the other day. I subscribed the other day after I heard it on the show.
Yeah, it's excellent. He's really, really good at analysing films, but he gives justification and evidence for his interpretation. So whereas the interpretation of the moon, the rocket, the Apollo 11 rocket on his jumper, could definitely be taken at a subconscious level from Kubrick as his implication in that regard, but the carpet, maybe not. But what Rob Ager also dissected was the subplot, if you will, of Danny's abuse in the movie. So at one point he turns up with a load of strangle marks on his neck, and the wife says to him, "You did this," to the husband. Now, the previous scene was in the room with a very creepy dad telling him to come and sit on his lap and tell him how much he loved him. And cut to the scene of him brushing his teeth, and then a picture of him in a jumper that's slightly torn with a picture of a very phallic rocket pointing at his mouth. So there's different subcontexts to all of these props, but if you've got a confirmation bias that says the moon landing's fake and Kubrick knew it, well, look to 2001. Don't look to bloody Shining. Yeah, he put a rocket on him, but I think he was, I'm agreeing with Rob Ager in his analysis of the abuse that Danny's suffering in the movie as a subplot, rather than that rocket being anything other than a phallic symbol pointing directly at his mouth, which is a different interpretation. So, yeah, the loose associations that the 237 documentary put out there were, I feel, concisely demolished by Rob Ager. And, yeah, 2-3 years ago, I looked at with great interest as a total conspiratard into these things like that documentary and went, wow, isn't that amazing? Yeah, he knew all about it and he coded it into The Shining. Because at that particular time, I'm looking for confirmation bias as well. Or everything points towards it because it's the main thing on my mind. But I don't think it's necessarily the case with The Shining.
No, that makes perfect sense. And why can't both be true given all the stuff that we now know or think we know or what's proposed to be known? Why couldn't both be true? I mean, you got to think someone did film that whole sequence. Who knows? I mean, I don't know. Like, I think it's a great idea to have NASA models and mock-ups and crude CGI just to sort of get the basic idea in people's heads, and then they make it real in their own mind because they think, well, obviously they're not going to put every circuitry component in the model I see on TV that tells me about the satellite. They just put a crude drawing of a satellite up there and you make it real. And then in the Kubrick kind of movies in 2001, they make it really realistic as much as possible, and that's how they make sci-fi make sense to people in the it's part of the whole programming. It's fascinating to think about everything. Crazy.
Have you seen Rob Ager's dissection of 2001? Because that was what made me hooked on his channels, because he essentially declared that he wasn't going to cast an opinion.
But I do definitely want to check out his channel. I just signed up, but I didn't really take a look at it much.
Well, in his dissection of 2001, he kind of highlights the reverse of what you've said. So I'm sure many would agree, oh yeah, he's done a really good job, the models are really good and it looks good, etc., etc. But in reality, it's riddled with what would be called intentional continuity errors. For example, but not limited to, the moon changing colour when they change angles. like completely changing colour. A very obvious continuity error that would probably, even though it's not subtle, it would still slip most people by. But Kubrick, in that particular movie, let's be honest, it's a NASA propaganda movie. Well, that NASA propaganda movie is going to have all of the subliminal embeds in that regard in that movie. Do you see what I mean? So, I don't know, the whole...
Yeah, but it's a multi-tiered attack. It's got to come at you from all angles in order for it to work. You got to make it real in your own head. That's the science fiction is just to give you a good basis to think about it, and then to think that it actually is real, even though I can't ever go there. You just got to believe what they say, and then the best option to look at is science fiction.
Yeah, but like I say, you're right in the respect that Kubrick's working on many different levels. He's not just working at the obvious plot level that people will generally take away from a movie screening of something like 2001. There's stuff that's so quick it'll slip you by unless you're watching it in very close detail, and there's other subplots that are literally put in there intentionally at great effort, subliminally to be exposed. Stuff about IBM is riddled with it, and you see it obviously once you know to look for it. But even though it's overt once you know,
right? Yeah,
it's still subliminally been planted in there, not to be obvious on first screening.
Yeah, after you said that, the obvious continuity mistakes. I don't know, I don't know if things can overtly be obvious, but I'd be curious. I need to go back and look at it. Ever since I heard you say it the other day, I was like, I don't know. I want to go back and see. It's interesting because Kubrick is too good and does work on more levels, so it's hard to pigeonhole it into one idea. It could be all kinds of things. How do we know?
Yeah, but when it comes to like changing the direction of that space station with its artificial gravity between shots, like it's just supposed to be a cut from the left side of the runner to the right side of the runner in one shot, but what he's actually done is stopped it, reversed the spin, moved the set from one side to the other, but intentionally leaving some things behind so they're in the wrong place, getting him to run the other direction, and then starting the whole shot to make it seem like it's just one shot from one side to the other in a change of camera angle, but in fact he's reversed the entirety of the spin. Now, I say this in detail because then... Hold on just one sec. Then you cut to Robert Bassano pointing out that the Earth starts turning in the middle of a shot of Earth from space. Now, the hilarity of this is what we focus on when we're pointing, or when Robert Bassano was pointing stuff like that out. But Kubrick's highlighting that aspect of the continuity errors by intentionally massaging in continuity errors in a set piece that matches a NASA set piece. But we just get one tagged as reality, one tagged as fake. Both have got continuity errors. Kubrick's are intentional, NASA's aren't.
I hear you. One could argue, as an editor, you could argue, well, that cut could be a showing of a passage of time, and it's like 10 minutes later, or just to show how much has passed. I don't know. I hear you though. I'm just devil's advocate.
Kubrick's too good, so I could argue from a good knowledge of Kubrick. So, for example, there's a bit in A Clockwork Orange where he wanders away having been tortured, and he's all sorry for himself, and he stands by a river. And what Kubrick does in 3 shots is show the level of the river going down and coming up. But it's only 3 shots. It's like 12 seconds, probably less. But if you're observant enough, you'll notice that the river's gone down. In the next shot, it's gone up again. So it demonstrates an elapse of time without having to say anything or show him having cars go by in a time lapse or anything stupid like that. So in other words, he's a good enough director to know how to show an elapse of time, whereas in 2001 that's definitely not what he's doing. It's a intentional continuity error when he changes the color of the moon from one shot to the next. There's no way he'd get that wrong. It's like I say, most of this stuff is not coming from me. It's coming from my recent watching of Rob Ager's analysis of this stuff. So I don't want to sound too intelligent when it comes to film analysis. I'm not. But yeah, subscribe to Collative Learning because he is and I'm not.
I can't wait. I can't wait to check it out. It's I love fun stuff, and it actually goes deep into talking about it.
Hello.
Hey.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in about Kubrick.
I was going to round out, but go ahead. You'll get the last word on it, Alwyn. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, Kubrick was simply so incredibly insightful and perceptive that he was at first using that insight to show people how much perception there really is, with the example of the passage of time by the river being at another position in just a simple shot. And later, he used that same perceptiveness literally to point out things as you said, in the continuity, but he was always playing with perception and trying to teach people as they were looking at it. Difference.
Perfect. And with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who tuned in on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Of course, another massive thank you to all of today's Discord and G+ panels for making this after show possible. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!